All right. I mean, I got to be honest. When I saw the news, it was one of those where it's like jaw drop and then immediately like, damn you, Matt Nagy, you coward. Like my thoughts went immediately to Matt Nagy being a coward. And I can't help it. When, that was like, it was
Damn.
so funny. I get the text from my little brother. He's like, you see the Patriots cut Cam Newton, like cut him. I see it. Go to my phone, Twitter, check it. Jaw drops. Start to send out a tweet like Mac Jones, QB number one, like I'm faux Adam Schefter. And then immediately I just want to be like, no, my tweet needs to be Matt Nagy's a coward. Like absolute cowardice. Do the right thing and do what the Patriots did. Cut Andy Dalton and let's go all in on Justin Fields. It's not going to happen because, as Matt Nagy says, that we got to see what Andy's like on the field. I just started, I immediately, like, that's how you're a fan of your team. When it's like, we try to
every
take our
other
bias,
move is actually just impacted on your team somehow.
Yeah, we try to take as much bias out as we can when we do the show. And I objectively, like, besides the Bears, I'm not a fan of any other team. So I try to just do objective, but that's one of those moments was like, you coward, Matt Nagy. Absolute coward.
They're very different situations, though. I know. But I get what you're saying. Like, it would be nice to just have a definitive answer as to when Justin Fields is going to play. That would be great if it was week 1. It's not going to be that unless something crazy happens. Meanwhile, we've got Nick Foles on the payroll as well. A hefty fee is at that. So, guy's got the most expensive quarterback room in the league. How about it?
Very, very, so clear-cut, talented, no mistakes in that room whatsoever.
Yeah, a lot of bravery and power packed into that room for sure.
There's a ton of talent in one third of the room, but the other 2/3 of the room, a lot of good guys, good
dudes.
Just you hear that a lot. Like they've got a bunch really good guys, good dudes.
That's right. Or as Kevin Clark would say, they got hands.
They got hands. They got hands. Yeah.
Anyways,
I know, but honestly, that was jaw dropping. Like Cam
it was
Newton,
surprising.
to me, that was jaw dropping, and I wanted to get your thoughts here as we open the show. My first thought was I immediately think to me this is something that it's like a warning to every other player who's unvaccinated. I think Cam Newton missing that time and with this last week and a half and watching Mac Jones work with the starters over and over, I think that the coaching staff in New England probably was like, what are we doing here?
Yep.
This guy is right now just as good as Cam. He is vaccinated, so we don't have to worry about anything like that. And, if he's just as good as the other guy, why? Let's just start this thing. Let's go. And I think it's just such a warning to all the other unvaccinated players. You're battling for jobs and you're battling for spots. If you are not Khalil Mack, you're not Devontae Adams, you're not Aaron Rodgers. You should get vaccinated for your own career. You should for your health, but you should for your career at this point.
Yeah, no, and it's a factor that teams have to weigh. Obviously you had Urban Meyer, someone with the slip of the tongue when he was talking about, whether or not certain factors played into certain people being released. And, same with Bill Belichick here with Cam Newton as well. And, you can't tell me that wasn't a factor, at least somewhat. The guy's just not available, and the best ability is availability in the NFL. And when you have to constantly question,
love a cliche.
It's great. It's the best one there is because
it is a great cliche.
It always rings true in the NFL and in most sports, really. But National Football League, you got to be ready to go. You got to be able to play. They only get 53 players, so you really got to be able to make the most of what you have. So yeah, that was really the biggest news to come out of the past week or so, heading into week 1 of the NFL. Welcome in, everyone, to the Football Lounge again, here for our AFC Predictions segment, where Mark and I will give our breakdown of each division in the AFC, as well as our final playoff seedings and conference standings. And then on top of that, we'll also take a look ahead because we are finally here less than a week away from the start of the NFL season. We got a football game Thursday night. We'll talk about that. And we'll finish things up with a couple of our best bets in terms of lines for this upcoming weekend as well. Full slate of games. Really looking forward to it, Mark. And for those of you watching on YouTube, welcome. We are brand new on YouTube right now. So if anyone wants to check that out, we'll have the podcast available Monday nights and back up on YouTube on Tuesday. So given the YouTube algorithm, you may have to do a little bit of searching. It's best to just go to our social media feed, so we'll get that out of the way right now. FB Lounge Pod on Twitter, and you can search the Football Lounge on Facebook. Find us there. We'll have the links to YouTube, and then you can subscribe and then get notifications every time we put videos out. But Mark,
and
please,
we need YouTube police. I do not remember what I wore 2 weeks ago, the last time we recorded.
It very well may have been the same shirt.
I could be in the same shirt here. I just want to get ahead of that. Every 2 weeks, so every week now, someone trying to remind me what I wore the week prior.
It's very important.
So I don't look like a total fool. I'll do my best.
This isn't golf, Mark. We don't have Monday outfits, Tuesday outfits there on the radio show.
On Mondays, I wear the blue with the pink flamingos.
There you go.
So I gotta try and be good about that. You don't want to look like a damn fool. Not that we look like fools, anyways.
Of course not.
Really excited for the AFC preview. It's one of those I feel way more confident actually about the AFC than I did the NFC. And especially even after the preseason ending, all the decisions that have been made, including Mac Jones, I still feel very confident. So I'm excited to see where you're at because we had some real differences in the NFC. And it just goes to show you that even two guys like us who, especially if you listen to the show, I think we think football very similar in a lot of ways. It's just hard the way we predict things and the way you see certain things breaking down in the schedule this year. Very excited to see where you're at. So I'm pumped for this show.
There are so many variables in an NFL season that even, people who think somewhat alike in many regards, so we're still going to, fray a little bit here and there, depending on the team and the standings and the divisions. But I agree with you. The AFC is a little bit easier to predict in terms of the top of the conference. We kind of know who are the top dogs to compete for the top spots. And then it's, the middle is pretty talented, so there might be a little bit of competition there. But really in the NFC, there's so much competition for the top spot. Even the top four seeds really could be debated as to who's going to make it. So, this one should be interesting to see kind of where we see these teams fall and how these divisions line up, too, because there's a couple divisions that I think are super weak in terms of the rest of it. There may be one or two teams that are good, and then the rest kind of fall off. So looking forward to seeing what your standings are as well. But I guess one final note before we get into it, we mentioned obviously Cam Newton gone, so Mac Jones is the de facto starter for the New England Patriots. I don't know, Mark, if that changes anything for you. In terms of Baltimore, J.K. Dobbins, the lead back, who was poised to take a big step forward, now will be out for the season. So Q and Gus Edwards and company to take over and really help lead that backfield, which is obviously still pretty much led by Lamar Jackson, but still to lose a top talent like him, a little bit difficult too. For me, the Mac Jones move and the J.K. Dobbins injury, neither of those actually affect my final standings for these teams. I think certain ways that they win may be affected, especially with New England, and certain ways they lose may be different. But I think their impact on the team this year is going to be pretty comparable to their predecessor or their successor, depending on one of those situations.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the J.K. Dobbins thing really just such a bummer because, again, I am very high in the Ravens. We've talked about it a little bit, and you'll find that out today. I did actually take a game away from the Ravens in prep for this because of that. It was one of those things where I start to look at that injury, and then I looked at where I had their record, and I thought to myself, that all of a sudden doesn't feel necessarily like a that win team now. So again, I'm spoiler alert a little bit. I'm very high in the Ravens. So all of a sudden, it literally took one win away. I put it back in the division somewhere. Didn't affect the standings, but I feel more comfortable with that number now, knowing that the Ravens run game is still going to be dynamic. It's still going to be effective, whoever they have carrying the ball. And they have a very good backfield still. Dobbins was the feature back, but certainly part of a group of running backs that Jim Harbaugh will be able to plug and play for sure. John Harbaugh, excuse me. And so I'm not too worried, but it did affect it a little bit for me. The Mac Jones thing, honestly, what's funny is I went back through the Patriots and I thought to myself, what do I feel different about now, I assumed that Cam Newton was going to start probably the first 5-6 games of the Patriots season. The only thing I have different now is I have the Patriots kind of similar to the Saints. So we talked about this before we started recording. I have the Saints at the same record now, even though they're going to be maybe homeless for the first 4 or 5 weeks NFL season due to Hurricane Ida. But I have it kind of the roller coaster being a little different. Like with the Saints now, I have them struggling a little bit more early, but then emotional, maybe winning an extra home game or two to combat that, still falling about the same record because the emotion of returning to New Orleans, all that stuff's going to be huge for them. And they're going to win a game or two like that on a Monday night or a Sunday, something like that, where it's like, man, oh man, the place is rocking, dealing with the, like we saw, 14, 15 years ago with Hurricane Katrina. And then for the Patriots, I don't know how you feel, but I feel as though a team that I thought was going to do well early and then struggle middle of the season and then kind of put together a little bit more late when Mac had more starts in his belt, I'm kind of flipping it. I think they're going to struggle early now with the rookie quarterback, but then by mid-season, you're going to start seeing them eating wins up more and more and more, Jameis Winston style, because of Mac being more comfortable in the offense and just him as a rookie having more time under his belt. So same record, different roller coaster in the season to get there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, the journey is a little bit different based on who's at the helm and who's leading the backfield or the quarterback room, for sure. I totally get that. I think Gus Edwards is talented enough to fill the role of J.K. Dobbins in the interim, and I'm not too worried about the Ravens, but we'll get to that with our predictions. So let's just dive into that, Mark. And then at the end of the show, we'll talk about the week ahead and the Thursday night game. So how about we start with the AFC North, and then we'll just go, north,
Great.
south, east, and west, and then we'll wrap things up. So I'll let you begin with your AFC North predictions. How do you have them stacked? I imagine, since you're high on the Ravens, maybe they're the top dog there in the North.
Such a gentleman letting me go first, and cordial as always. And I do have the Ravens at 12-5. So I had them at 13-4. I thought to myself, without their star running back, I don't feel comfortable then going higher than 12. I still think the ceiling for them is 12 to 13 wins. So I still am the high end of the Ravens. I think this is a playoff team no matter what. But I have them as the one as the winner of the North at 12-5. I think Lamar Jackson is poised to have a very good year. I think that it's a little bit more of not a prove it year, because when you win an MVP, you don't need to prove anything. But it's now we're talking contracts. Like, this is a money year. Already the guy in his class, Josh Allen, got paid real big, real early. He's sitting there with Baker, and the other guys in that class haven't been paid yet. And both of them are looking for that. So I think it's going to be a big year for Lamar. I like the improvements. They got him some wide receivers. The defense is always going to be very, very good in a tough division. I like the Ravens at 12-5. I have the Steelers actually in second place in this division at 10-7. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are kind of, again, I think this is a ceiling for them. I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers bottoming out by the middle of the year as well. They're the type of team that is such a wild card, maybe the biggest wild card in all of the NFL, because I think they're so thin. They have still a bunch of high-end starters. I think they're still thin in some spots, especially if Big Ben, comes out firing on all cylinders, has a great start, and gets a nick or something like that. They could lose 3 or 4 games pretty easily. A tough schedule because everyone in division is very good, and that division always plays each other really good. Even when the Steelers were like Bell, Brown, Big Ben, all 3 of them in their prime, they were never going 6-0 in division. It's just one of those divisions where even the best team doesn't go 6-0 in division. But I'm higher on Pittsburgh than I am Cleveland, mainly because I think Big Ben, lot to prove, final season. I think he's going to play really well early. I think they trail off late like they did, just because I think it's Ben's play as they get older quarterback, colder weather. But I like him enough to be a 10-7 and to sneak in as a wild card team. I have the Cleveland Browns at 10-7 as well. I do not have them in the playoffs. This one really hurts because they're returning a lot of guys. They are pretty much the same core. Their defense to me is still the question mark. I love Myles Garrett, good linebackers, but overall how they play total defense, still the question mark to me. Baker Mayfield is a guy I have up and downs with. I have a fear that Baker Mayfield is going to have a bad season for Cleveland Browns fans. Bad in the sense to where he's not going to win himself a contract this year. And I think that Baker, in order for the Browns to make the playoffs with a Ravens team that I really like, a Steelers team that I really like, and an improved Bengals team, if Joe Burrow is healthy all year, they're going to be improved. That's a really tough division. Someone's got to be odd man out. History tells me I'm going to lean towards Pittsburgh over Cleveland. It's kind of where I feel on that. I do like Cleveland's roster more than Pittsburgh's. I like the Pittsburgh quarterback more, so I kind of lean that way. They're both at 10-7. I like them both very equally, but I'll have the Steelers in, the Browns just out. And maybe that's a big shocker for a lot of people because a lot of people are high in the Browns. I have the Bengals in fourth in the division, 6-11. The Bengals are one of those teams where I think, like, again, for them this year's success is, man, oh man, Joe Burrow looks great, and we're protecting him a little bit better. They are still not a contender. They're a year away, another draft, and maybe getting another piece on the offensive line and the defensive line away from being like, all right, now I expect you to start competing for a playoff spot. It was 7 in each conference. But I'm excited to watch the Bengals play. I'm excited to watch Joe Burrow play back from the devastating knee injury. I'll give him 6-11.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So we actually have pretty similar thoughts on how the AFC North will shake out. For me, I too have Baltimore atop the division, and I have them at 13-4. So that's kind of just where I had them before and after the J.K. Dobbins injury news. I don't think it affects them too much, although, he obviously brings another element. He's a talented guy, but this offense is pretty talented and able to overcome things, I think. I'm just high on them for the, standpoint of they have a phenomenal defense, arguably got better this offseason. And then on top of it, they have Lamar coming back for, even though he had a good year last year, I would consider somewhat of a bounce back, if you can even call it that. Somewhat closer back to form of his MVP season in 2019 than 2020. I just envision that happening another year with this offense, another year of evolution here. And the Baltimore Ravens are always that team that's going to have a good record. They're always going to compete. And based on the way their schedule kind of shakes out, I think they have a really good opportunity for a lot of stretches where they're going to stack a lot of wins. So that's why I think I don't see them really going 2 losses in a row more than maybe once this whole year, I think, based on the schedule that I had there in the predictor where you picked each individual game for each individual week. I mean, they start outside of a Chiefs game in week 2. They start with the Raiders, the Lions, the Broncos, and even the Colts I'm not too scared about because they get them at home. So really, for the first 5 weeks, I think are, somewhat easy wins for the Ravens here. And then, they go through patches throughout the rest of the season. The ending is definitely the toughest when they have to contend with the Steelers twice, the Browns, the Packers, and the Rams. That's going to be the biggest test, I think, for them, where they're probably going to end up with 2 of their 4 losses in that stretch. But it could end up where they just go on a run towards the end of the season like they usually finish strong. So, yeah, the Ravens are just one of those stacked teams that I really feel from top to bottom have a lot of depth and have a lot of great starter quality players pretty much at every position on both defense and offense. So I have them at first. Cleveland actually comes in for second in the division with for me at 11-6. And, part of it's the consistency. They return pretty much everybody here. Defense, really solid. And then, their linebacker core is really the only issue they've had there for a couple of seasons, but it hasn't really mattered in terms of their overall defense. They've been able to play very good. And a lot of that's because offensively they've been able to control the, line of scrimmage and the time of possession. I don't see any of that changing. I mean, they get Kareem Hunt back. They get Nick Chubb back. They're all-star linemen, especially Wyatt Teller there. I just think overall this team is just set up for another year very similar to last year. And the consistency and their ability to dominate in the trenches is what gives me kind of, pause about the Pittsburgh Steelers in putting them ahead of the Browns in this division. I think Cleveland also has a little bit of an easier road this regular season, especially towards the latter part, where they get to finish with the Raiders and the Browns in between a couple tough games, albeit against the Steelers and Packers. But I feel confident in the Browns and their ability to run the football and maintain a lot of success throughout the season and not go into too many lulls throughout. I will say, though, in terms of like the playoff berth and the playoff run, they're still a team for me that I just don't foresee making a deep enough run based on that type of play. Like, they're going to be put in situations in the playoffs where they're going to be down and kind of have to push up the tempo, not going to be able to control the clock the entire time. And that's where they may get into trouble. Pittsburgh comes in at third for me at 10-7. They just squeak into the playoffs here at 10-7, and I kind of view that really. I mean, maybe 11-6 as their ceiling, but this is pretty damn close to their ceiling in my view. Just too many question marks, Mark. I mean, the offensive line is a complete makeover. We don't know what we're going to get from them yet, so that's a huge question mark. I do think the run game will be better, mainly because of Najee Harris and because they got more aggressive run blockers to round out this offensive line. But there's still question marks there. There's question marks with, Ben going into yet another season. Regardless of what people want to say, I'm in the middle there. I don't think that he's completely fallen off and that his arm is toast, but I also don't think, he's not the Ben of old. So to be able to carry this team, that's going to be tough. I think they're going to really need to rely on that run game, and so a lot's going to bank on that. I think it does okay, but not well enough to push them ahead in this division. And then defensively, they're going to be fine, but they do take a step back with the loss of Bud Dupree and Mike Hilton. So just a lot of things up in the air right now for Pittsburgh, but they are a team, they went 8-8 with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, so I'm not going to pick this team to go 500 or below just because of that. And so, yeah, I have them at 10-7. And then Bengals, they're in the basement, although they have a much better run this season than even last year. I think Joe Burrow takes that next step, and I have them here at 7-10. So, maybe that's a little bit high. I still, can see them at that 5-6 win range, but I think the offense takes a step forward. And for that gets me a win or two there to give them a couple legs up on where they were in 2020.
Yeah, no, we are pretty much lockstep with everything. Interesting to note. So you have 3 teams out of the North making the playoffs. So that's interesting.
Yep.
I have 2. The other main thing I would say there is I want to remind just for myself. I'll speak for myself here, not for you. When I talk highly about the Ravens, I don't want you to all of a sudden think, oh, Mark's going to pick the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I feel as though the Ravens are a lot like the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA. Like, they're just so unique. They're hard to prepare for. And week by week in the sludge of the season, you got to deal with Giannis running down the court, and you're like, dude, this dude is 7 feet tall, and what is he doing? He just blew by me, and he's dunking all over me. Like, and it's a Wednesday night, and you're just getting, you may be a better team than them in a 7-game series when you have the time to prepare. But I mean, the Ravens are very much like that. And I know now that's a bad comparison.
Yeah, because they won the championship. Yeah.
But yeah. I just think that, again, I want to see how Baltimore goes. I'm not preseason right now, though. I'm not picking Baltimore to win the title. Baltimore, as I said, though, to you last week, or I said on my show 2 weeks ago, they're in that bubble for me of a team, of the group of like 8-9 teams that I could see winning the Super Bowl, because they're going to have a good record in the regular season, position themselves well, possibly have a bye, the one bye, or have a home game or two in the playoffs. And I do think that experience matters. I mean, Lamar, this would be his 3rd year in a row in the playoffs and things like that. That would be that could be really, really would it be 4th year in a row for him in the playoffs?
This would be 4th year in a row. I believe he
did start that playoff game as a rookie and then they went back to Flacco. So eventually you'll get going. He already got the monkey off his back with the 1 win. Who's to say it wouldn't be 2 or 3 wins this year? So I just want to preface that I'm high on the Ravens in the regular season predicting the records.
Before we get into the AFC South, I just want to say you reminded me how excited I am for Mark Hespin's Super Bowl plane. I can't wait for that to come back this season. So, yeah, stay tuned for that.
By week 3, it starts to take shape, I'll tell you.
There we go.
All right, so we're going to the South.
We are going to the AFC South, so take it away.
This is an easy one for me. The Titans take the division, the division, the AFC South at 12-5. I'd be higher on the Titans if I knew exactly what their offense looked like without Arthur Smith. But when you tell me you're starting the season with Ryan Tannehill, who, when the stats bear it out, the numbers bear it out, my eye bears out too. When you watched him the past year and a half in Tennessee. He's a top 5 quarterback for the past year and a half. Numbers and eye test, he has been legit. Deep ball thrower, accurate. He's mobile. He can make any throw, and he doesn't make stupid decisions. He's like a hyper athletic Kirk Cousins with a slightly bigger arm. It's very, very unique to watch Tannehill play in that way. And then you add Julio Jones with Brown, 2 absolute monster receivers on the outside. And Derrick Henry's still there. If this team stays healthy, I think there's no reason why they don't win the AFC South. I think they easily go 2-0 against the Jags, 2-0 against the Texans. Even if they split with Houston, with Indy, I like them more than Indy because I know more what I'm getting out of the quarterback than I do in Indianapolis. Which leads me to Indianapolis. I do have them second in the division at 11-6 and making the playoffs as a wild card team. This is a lot of it's based off of my belief in the head coach, in Frank Reich, and that defense. I mean, Darius Leonard is a stud. They have a great offensive line, a very solid defensive line, great back end of the defense with really good linebackers, including Darius Leonard. I love what they've built there defensively. And again, I think they go 2-0 against Jacksonville, 2-0 against Houston. So 4 easy wins. You're not telling me that you can't find 7 other wins on the schedule then for this Indianapolis team that has an extremely talented defense and a quarterback with his guy, head coach, who's a brilliant head coach offensively and a ton to prove. I think there's 7 wins out there for a really great run team too. Remember, Michael Pittman came on. They got weapons. It's not just your T.Y. Hilton anymore. You like the running game. I like Michael Pittman. And so I think that the Colts, they were a playoff team last year. I think they're just as good, if not slightly better at quarterback this year than they were last year with Philip Rivers. So there's no reason for me they don't make the playoffs again this year, especially with the Jags and the Texans completely rebuilding. I go to the Jags. I think the Jags end up 5-12. And again, I think two of those 5, I think they're more of a 3-win team, but they play the Texans twice.
They did.
So
yeah.
I think they're better than the Texans. I think that'll play out week 1 at Houston. I think that you have to remember a year ago, everyone was thinking about Trevor Lawrence and who was going to tank for Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville wasn't really on the radar to be like, oh, that bad. Jacksonville was right there with the Jets all year long. The Jets then blow it and give Jacksonville the 1 seed. I mean, as bad as I think of the Jets, you got to remind yourself, don't be clouded by the fact that they now have Trevor Lawrence. A year ago, 6 months ago, they didn't have Trevor Lawrence. They were the worst team in football for a reason. This is a complete rebuild job. Not a lot of talent anywhere. Even their defensive star, Miles Jack, would he start on every defense? Probably not. He's not stud.
I think he would start on most defenses, but I wouldn't consider him a
it's not like
superstar in the NFL.
It's not like a Myles Garrett or a Aaron Donald or a Khalil Mack or a TJ Watt.
Yeah.
He's a very good player, but he's not a game changer. You don't need anyone else in your defense, game plan around him, especially with how bad they are, the rest of it. I'll give them 5 wins because I think I hate that they lost ETN for the season. That is a real bummer. Just because I'd love to see him and Lawrence start to build it. But they have Robinson. There was a position where they already had depth. That's a win for them. I don't love that they're basically trusting Marvin Jones Jr. Where did he end up from Detroit all of a sudden in Jacksonville? I don't love the rest of their weapons. But I think Trevor Lawrence is good for a couple wins, surprising. And their schedule isn't that tough if you actually look at it. I can find them a couple other wins besides Houston. I'll go high ceiling. I think their ceiling is 5 wins. 4 or 3 is probably more likely, but I'll go 5-12. And the bottom of the barrel, the basement, is the Texans. I go 1-16. I give them 1 win because I don't want to predict that they're not going to win any games. I'll give them 1. They play the Jets. I think I gave them the Jets win.
Yeah.
I could look like a fool and they could win 4 or 5. But there's no way this Houston Texans team is winning more than 4 or 5. I don't see it at all.
There's nothing we can use to point to right now to say, yeah, that's clear evidence of 4 wins. It might happen, but we don't have anything to say such right now.
Exactly. So I hate predicting a 1-16 or an 0-17 or a 2-15 at this point, but I just don't see it. I feel when you go through the schedule, every time you see the Houstons against someone, you say, "Oh, I like them better." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's
pretty
there's
clear.
nothing to tell. There's just nothing to tell you. Now, if all of a sudden by week 5, Deshaun Watson's starting, it's a different game. But Deshaun Watson, there's all those stories coming out against Miami that basically Miami was willing to give the first-round picks, but then basically with all the provisions like, oh, by the way, if he's found out to be a serial sex offender, we get those picks back. And Houston's like, no, that's not how it works. I mean, that's legitimately where the trade talks are right now, Deshaun Watson. There is a market for him, but with the caveat of, you know what, either I'll do it now, but I get those picks back if he's a serial sex offender. So that's where we're at with that. And so I just don't see Deshaun Watson playing football this early enough in the season to make a difference for Houston or to get traded for another team. And most likely probably sitting out the whole year as they get through the legal battles to this. And can I just say kudos to Houston and the organization. And I hate on them as much as anyone because I think they're extraordinarily dysfunctional and they're run by a creepy reverend at that. I'll just say this. They do deserve credit for – the NFL is not telling them to not play Deshaun Watson unless it's behind closed doors. He's not on the exempt list.
Right, yeah.
This is an organizational decision to say we are waiting to see what happens. And kudos to them. And maybe that's why Deshaun Watson wants to leave because they don't have his back. Listen, I'm not going to comment on that. If Deshaun is 100% innocent and in his mind he is 100% innocent, then maybe that'll come to light in a year from now. And maybe he has a gripe to say, have my back. And I want an organization to have my back and believe me. But the accusations are such that credit to Houston for saying, we want no part of this. We don't have to play him until we know exactly what is going on. So I'll give him 1 win, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And who knows, like you said, I mean, there could be closed doors nudging right there. Like the NFL, are you sure you really want to do that, Houston? Maybe don't play the guy, yeah. But either way, we actually have very, very similar feelings about how this division will shake out. Same exact standings I have as you, and very similar records as well. So I have the Titans at the top, 13-4 for me. For many of the reasons you said, look, the defense scares me a little bit, and that's the biggest problem that they're going to face. I think Mike Vrabel, as being a really good defensive coach, is the one aspect that's able to help maybe disguise some of their shortcomings. And, I don't think they got worse necessarily, but it's just the fact that the defense is just devoid of a lot of talent, and that can be problematic down the stretch. But that offense is as loaded as any. And with Ryan Tannehill playing out of his mind, they acquire Julio Jones. Offensive line is stout. Derrick Henry, I predicted, was going to, break the rushing record, have another 2,000-yard season. Yeah. So the sky's the limit, really, for the Titans in this division. But I think, they're capped at a ceiling of 13 wins because of that defense and because they're bound to lose a shootout or two just based on that fact alone. Indianapolis comes in a close second for me, 12-5. I think it's going to be a battle. I still think Tennessee may not ever be in danger. They may always have 2 wins up throughout as the league goes on, if that makes any sense, until maybe towards the end where the Colts get one back, but it's a little bit too late at that point. Indianapolis, obviously, injury concerns have been something really that's plagued them over the past decade. But, Carson Wentz, we've already kind of had issues about whether or not he's going to be back in time. It appears that he is slated to get the start in week 1, but then Quentin Nelson and company, some of the other offensive linemen had to go into COVID protocols. So there was some shadow about how the season was going to start for them. Jonathan Taylor, obviously a great rising star, a sophomore running back here, ready to go. Obviously, broke in the doors his rookie campaign last season, and really down the stretch had a phenomenal run in the final 5 or 6 games. So I think they continue that. You mentioned Michael Pittman, the receiving core, they definitely have weapons here. And then that defense is very, very good with Darius Leonard anchoring that linebacker core that is so stout. And this defense, it's going to be hard to score against this defense. So they're going to be in it throughout the season. 12-5, I have them there at second place. Jacksonville, I agree with you, 5-12 for me as well. I don't think that's actually totally out of the realm. I'm a little bit higher on their overall talent offensively than maybe you are. I really like the Laviska Shenault. I think DJ Shark is a really good talent. And I think Marvin Jones, for being a number 3 safety belt, I think you could do a lot of worse than that. I mean, he's a guy that's at least a solid possession receiver. And that's, a veteran that knows I think he'll be a good quality target, especially on third down for Trevor Lawrence throughout the season. James Robinson, I think, will be fine. I think the run game will do all right. It's the offensive line that's the biggest problem on this team. And that's what Trevor Lawrence is going to have to deal with all season long. It's what Robinson's going to have to deal with as well.
He's going into a Joe Burrow mirror situation.
Yeah,
that
very,
offensive
very
line is dangerously bad.
Yeah, very similar situation. Weapons around you, poor defense, and bad offensive line. In a division where there's 2 clear alphas, and that's just tough. That's tough to overcome for a rookie quarterback, no matter how great he is. I think he's going to have a decent season in terms of stats and all of that on paper, but it doesn't translate to wins, at least not yet. They're probably 1 or 2 years away from actually making a push to the playoffs. We'll see kind of how drafts progress, and we also don't know how Urban Meyer is as a head coach. So that's a big question mark too. Houston in the basement for me at 1-16 as well, and I have them winning the same game against the Jets that you do. We'll see. That'd be funny if it turns out to be that we predicted.
They might
that
win
exact
week
game.
1 at hosting Jacksonville, and then do what Jacksonville did last year. They won week 1 against upset the Colts, and then they lost 15 straight games.
Yeah. So, there's just nothing about Houston that really jumps off the table to you.
They have a lot of running backs.
They have a lot of running backs, and the median age of 38 on that running back team. So that group, Philip Lindsay's the young buck, and he's about third in command. So I don't know what this offense is going to look like. Looks like Davis Mills is going to be the dude.
Well, they announced Tyrod
right?
Taylor's the starter today.
They just announced that today.
So they did announce that. And
which actually, that is a good move for them, because if you're going to be a team that is definitely not going to be in contention, do you want Davis Mills to absolutely get destroyed for a 16-game slate? I don't know. I would rather have a guy like Tyrod who can compete in this league, and a veteran guy to maybe help build the younger core of the team.
The debate between starting a rookie and sitting a rookie for a Justin Fields, Trey Lance is a different debate than it is for Davis Mills.
Yeah.
And especially with where the Texans are at, you're absolutely right. It could ruin his career. He might have a chance to be a really decent starter in this league if he has a chance to not get absolutely murdered. He's just not talented enough early, like a Lance or a Fields, physically, athletically, arm talent-wise, to just overcome. And Lance, Fields, Mac Jones, they have the 3 guys who were talking about sit or start. We knew that Lawrence was. We knew that Wilson was going to start. Those 3 guys have more talent around them. The Patriots almost made the playoffs. The Bears made the playoffs, and the Niners were injuries away from a Super Bowl, previous Super Bowl appearance. So I agree 1,000,000% with you.
Yeah, and maybe he does get thrown in towards the end of the season, and they're like, "We'll give you 5 games at the end of the year to start to get acclimated." And I think that's probably the best way for them to go moving forward here. But 1-16 just seems to be right about now. I know it's really low. But then again, has there been a team on paper going into a season that's looked as bad as Houston? I can't think of one in recent memory, really, going into
Yeah.
a season. So that's an easy one.
Dysfunctional from the top to the bottom. Before we move on, can I ask you one question? I think this is, to me, what separates the Titans and the Colts. Can I ask you this question? For me, I cannot imagine, injuries aside, no injuries, I cannot imagine the Titans missing the playoffs. I can imagine the Colts missing the playoffs, injuries aside. Does that make sense? To me, that's the separation.
I think I can agree with that because I think there's a little bit more volatility to the play of Carson Wentz.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Like Tannehill, where you're going to get. The floor for Tannehill is not 30 interceptions.
Yeah.
But Carson could, we've seen it before. So it's the range of outcomes is so vast that it's hard to predict. So yeah, I'm right there with you in terms of that kind of breakdown in that division.
And I will say Carson Wentz is another one that it appears is unvaccinated. He was in the COVID protocols. That's going to play a factor at some point.
It very well
just
may.
Is. I mean, Minnesota is not happy at all that Kirk Cousins is one of the few unvaccinated on that team. They do not have. Kellen Mond is too young. This is a coaching staff that needs to win to keep their jobs, and this is a they're not in a rebuild. This is a team that expects to win. Same with the Colts. And if you're at Frank Reich and if you're Mike Zimmer and you're dealing with your quarterback who's unvaccinated, the penalties. I'm sorry, but the penalties that the NFL has set, and they've been very clear for it, for unvaccinated who come into contact versus vaccinated that come into contact, it is the difference between missing 2 days and missing 2 games.
Yep.
I mean, it is
10 days. I believe is the wait time.
Yeah,
for
the unvaccinated.
That's too long. It's just too long, and that's why we said at the beginning that this is things that teams are taking into account. No question.
And you know what, Kirk Cousins, good for him. He has milked Minnesota when they signed him to that contract last season, in the offseason. I thought it was the stupidest decision ever. Vikings fans
He's made the most out of his career, that's for sure.
I mean, Vikings fans always want to hit him. Oh, Mitch Trubisky stinks. I mean, you're dealing with a guy who is literally no better than Mitch Trubisky. He's maybe a little more accurate and a little less volatile, way more unathletic. And you've committed another $90 million 3 years to him last year. So you have a whole nother year of that where you're stuck with Kirk Cousins not only this year but next year as well. Like right. I mean, and he's like, okay, I didn't mean to go to Kirk Cousins. I could always go to Kirk Cousins, but
this is the AFC show.
I know. All right, so we're going north, south, east next.
Yeah, let's go east. AFC East.
All right, I have one team making it into the playoffs from the AFC East, and that's the winner of the AFC East. That is the Buffalo Bills. No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. And I have them at 14-3. And I have them being an absolute wagon this year. I think Buffalo has a very tough schedule, but I think they're going to show up and show out. I think that Josh Allen is going to be right there all season long with Mahomes and Wilson as the 3 guys battling for MVP. I think that they have easy 2 wins against the Jets. I think they can easily win both games against the Dolphins because I just don't see the Dolphins being able to score. Listen, the Dolphins have a great defense, and the Bills' defense is okay. It's not great. It's not bad. It's okay. But I don't see them being able to score with Buffalo one bit. And then with the Patriots, I think Buffalo, all of a sudden then, I think all things considered, you're saying, who do I trust more, Josh Allen or Mac Jones? Well, I think it's just a no-brainer. I mean, I think they could easily go 5-1 in division. And then you look at them else. They have tough games. They have a ton of tough games. But in each game, I look at I just like Josh Allen more. I like their weapons more. I like everything that Buffalo has going for them. So I think it's one of those things they build on it. And the top of the AFC, man, with the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, Titans, it is a great, great football, very competitive, and it's going to be so much fun to watch. I go the Dolphins next at 9-8, and I have the Dolphins slightly ahead of New England. Same record, 9-8 New England, spoiler. But I'll talk about the Dolphins first. I'll give them the slight edge. I think that Tua has a pretty good year. I know I said in my predictions that he's one but the bold prediction, he doesn't start every game. I still think that's a possibility. I still think that there's a point in time because the end of the season, as they're battling, Tua has a game or two where he looks shaky and possibly Brissett gets a start or they do something else. But I think overall, the problem we're going to sit here at the end of the season, I think, with Tua and just go, he's Kirk Cousins. Like, at what point in time do you say the roster's too good to just have like a quarterback who can't help you win games? That's my prediction, at least. I think offensively they're going to be better. I just don't see them being able to score enough and dynamic big plays. I mean, in order to make the playoffs in this league, you have got to have some 3-play drives. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the modern NFL. Kansas City has 3-play drive potential. The Chargers have 3-play drive potential. The Bills have a ton of 3-play drive potential. The Ravens, we know all this. The top teams, Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, 3-play drive potential. I mean,
the Titans do too. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. The Packers, Devontae Adams. Like, I mean, you have got to have that. I don't see that with Miami, and that's also then I go to the Patriots. The same thing. Mac Jones, I think, can get them to just above 500. I think that's the ceiling with Mac Jones and all of this. He's still a rookie. I still think there's a lot of pressure being the New England Patriots starting quarterback. And you think about it right now. Think about Mac Jones as he's getting ready for week 1. And that the past week, since he got named the starter, do you know what happened? The NFL Pro Shop, there is no Mac Jones jerseys available. They're completely sold out.
There you go.
That is a Patriots fan base that is going to be very, very difficult for him. I think, it starts off at home against a tough Miami defense. He's got a lot of weapons. He's got a great coaching staff. I think Mac Jones can lead the Patriots like Tua can lead the Dolphins on 10-play scoring drives, nickel, dime, 5, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4 play drive. Can they get a quick, boop, we're down by 7, 3 plays, bada bing, bada boom, touchdown? I just don't see that. I think you have to have that to be a playoff team in a very tough AFC and in the modern NFL. Like the Patriots, like the Dolphins, they're both about the same to me, 9-8. And then I go the Jets. I end with at 4-13. I think the ceiling I'm on the low end. I think the ceiling for the Jets could be closer to 6 or 7 wins. I'm gonna put caution on this and say, man, they have a rookie head coach. They were the second worst team in the NFL, the worst team for most of the season, the second worst team for the other half of the season in the NFL. They were a dumpster fire. They have a rookie head coach. The pieces that they've added, I like some of them, but then they lost their prize free agent signing. I can't think of the D-line's name. Torres is Achilles. I like Saleh, but you got to go against Doug McDermott. You got to go against Brian Flores. You got to go against Bill Belichick 2 times each of those guys a year. I think they're 0-6 in division. I think when you're 0-6 in division, that those losses hurt. They lead to other losses. And I think the Jets will be happy in this season if at the end of the year they go, man, Zach Wilson is the guy. Now we just got to support him. I think the offensive line's messy. I don't love their weapons. And I don't love Zach Wilson. You know this about me. I think 4-13 is the best I can do for the Jets.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. They're going to have a tough season and a really just up and down year trying to work through a new coaching staff and a rookie quarterback. It's just not an ideal setup for them in a division that's pretty competitive now. So yeah, once again, man, we're in a lot of agreement. So a lot more agreement than I envisioned, but maybe the AFC West will change that a little bit. We'll see. But I do have Buffalo at the top, although I think most would put Buffalo top the AFC East going into this regular season. 13-4 for me. Do the Buffalo Bills have there and one of the top seeds in the AFC because of that very fact. And look, I mean, this is a team that, for all intents and purposes, is prepared to make a Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
Based on the coaching staff, they have the quarterback, and they have the roster construction down. It's just based on, how the actual playoff seedings pan out for them, and if they're actually able to get over the hump and make a significant run. We know that they got close to doing that last year. So I think the Bills take another step forward this year and are right there with the rest of them. I mean, there's not much to say. It's Josh Allen. He's phenomenal. Sean McDermott. This defense is really great. I think they come out of the gates week one and really put a hurting on Pittsburgh. It's in Buffalo. It's a great way for them to kind of start the season against a quality opponent. And I just see Buffalo kind of launching right into the season, kind of where it left off last year with that bad taste in its mouth, but still plenty of firepower to bring to the table. Stephon Diggs is one of the better receivers in the NFL, and you have Josh Allen throwing him the football. They added Emmanuel Sanders, who is, defying time right now as a quality veteran receiver that can still stretch the field. Gabriel Davis is quality. Cole Beasley, we'll see how many games he ends up playing this year. But Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, really, that's the biggest question mark on the team is whether or not they can actually get the run game going. We know they have some talented guys back there, but they haven't been able to put it together thus far. Granted, Josh Allen provides a lot in the run game for them, so he probably helps, alleviate some of those concerns early on. But yeah, I think they're a great team and still atop the AFC East for yet another year. Miami 10-7 for me, so they are kind of right on that bubble, that playoff bubble, but I do have Miami just on the outside looking in terms of where they fit in these playoff standings. So just missing out as the actual 9 seed, tied with another team we'll get to in just a moment. But yeah, look, I think they take a step forward, and I don't think 10-7 is a bad season for the Miami Dolphins, given kind of where we've seen the trajectory go over the past couple years. So really, I think it's just them getting another year comfortable, Tua getting more involved with the offense and actually being able to, take more control, making multiple reads on his own, calling some plays on his own perhaps in there as well. I trust Brian Flores. I think he's one of the best young coaches in the league. So we know that the floor is going to be pretty high for this team, and the defense is going to be there. But I agree with you. Where is the big play potential on this team? I mean, Devontae Parker is a few years removed from that. Mike Gesicki is talented, but we really don't know what he and Tua are like yet. They're hoping to kind of have that big tandem. Jalen Waddle is a rookie receiver. Is he going to make a big enough impact in year one? It looks like he has the talent to do so, but he's also not the 80-yard kind of guy. He's not a Tyreek Hill type of player. Granted, he's a great route runner, and I'm sure he'll make an impact early on, but I agree with you that maybe they just don't have that firepower yet to put them over the top in some of these, big games where they're needing quick drives late in the fourth quarter. Are they able to get it with Tua and company? That's yet to be seen, and so that's why I have them there at second at 10-7. Right behind them, 9-8 for the Patriots as well. It's where I had them with Cam. It's where I have them with Mac Jones. I think they win differently, but very similar. I think Mac, while he seems to be a good decision maker and, gets the ball out quick, he's a guy that's still a rookie that, only has 1 year of college experience really as a starter under his belt. So I imagine some growing pains. I think that's going to come with pretty much anyone in that situation. Some of his predecessors have a lot more mileage on them coming into this year, whereas he really just has that one season. So I envision, some more mistakes than maybe some of the other guys, and that's going to kind of cap their ability to get to that 11-win threshold or whatever it is to compete in this division. I will say with the Patriots, though, the biggest improvement's the defense. I mean, they had 7 guys that were opting out last year come back. That was a defense we're talking about top 5 going into the year last year before the opt-outs. So I feel like no one's really talking about this Patriots defense this year. They're going to be, at the very worst, a top 10 unit and very capable of being a top 5 unit. Now, we know the news is Stephon Gilmore's not good here early on. He's appearing to be missing some time. We don't know how much time, I believe.
Well, he's on the pup list, so it's like you got to miss at least the first 7 games of that.
I think it was the first 3. I thought. See, that's what confused me because I.
Oh no, because I thought it was because Tariq Cohen's on that as well. I think it's the first 7.
Well, that's interesting because I know IR requires the first 3. So.
Well, we'll look it up, but
yeah, we can look that up. But either way, Yeah, okay, no, you're right. It says, looking it up, NFL.com won't play until week 7. So I was incorrect. You were right on that front. So yeah, they're gonna have obviously a miss there, but J.C. Jackson uh, came up as one of the best corners last year for them. They always seem to do
Yeah.
well in the defensive backfield, so the Patriots shouldn't take too big of a hit with the loss of Gilmore for the first half of the week. And we'll see what the running game is like now with Damian Harris firmly in place after they dealt Sony Michel. So, yeah, look, it's Damian Harris is showing the backfield there, and Cam Newton's not stealing carries. So it will be interesting to see kind of how they formulate the run game with Mac Jones as the quarterback as opposed to Cam Newton. But nonetheless, 9-8 outside of the playoffs. Another year for me for the New England Patriots to get into that playoff conversation. We'll see if that changes midseason, but as for now, that's where we got them, obviously. New York Jets come in fourth, and I have them at 4-13 as well. That's, for the obvious reasons you kind of mentioned it. I don't have to go too much into detail there, but, it's a rookie coach who I like. I think Robert Saleh is going to be a really good coach someday, and he might be right out of the gates. It's just the unknown. For that being said, we know what we have in Buffalo. We know what we have in Miami for the most part in terms of the coaching staffs, and of course New England. So really, the Jets are the odd man out in that division right now. Rookie quarterback coming from a smaller conference, a lot of question marks there. So yeah, we just don't know how things are going to shake out and how this run game is going to look either. With apparently Tevin Coleman leading the backfield here. So yeah, we'll see how the Jets develop, but based on their schedule, Mark, and the fact that they have to play these three teams, I could easily see them going 0-6 in the division, and that's a lot to overcome in a regular season. Obviously, they can steal one. I have them falling to Houston. They can easily win that one as well. So there's a lot that can go either way, but I think 4-13 is a spot I feel comfortable with, as opposed to what did I have them, 8-8 last year? Yeah, I'm definitely lower on the Jets this season.
Well, I just looked it up too. It's Carl Lawson who's the big free agent signing. Yep. He tore his Achilles, and I think that's the best way to say it. I'll put it to you this way: would you? I honestly, it's weird to say this because the Dolphins were 10-6 last year. You got to remember, they made it to 10-6 with all the quarterback controversy, the Tua starting, the not starting, down, in and out. But for some reason already, I feel more confident the Patriots would make the playoffs over the Dolphins. I know I have the Dolphins higher in my rankings, but if you had to force me to bet one of those teams to make the playoffs, I'd probably be like, I bet the Patriots.
You think the Patriots might have a higher ceiling in this regard?
I think they might have a higher ceiling just because I do think that they will. The Patriots will protect Mac Jones with play calling. They have a good offensive line. And the Patriots are more comfortable because they've won so much for so long, and they have Bill Belichick. I just feel like they're more comfortable playing low-scoring games. There's pressure in Miami. The rumors are the Miami's trying to trade for Deshaun Watson. I just feel like that's the type of stuff that could boil over. I love Brian Flores. I think Brian Flores' job should be very safe. He didn't draft Tua. You know what I mean? The GM, the rest of the team is, they're put together so well. Just one of those things where it's very interesting.
So let's go to the West then. We have the same lineup there for the East. Let's see if we carry it over to the West as well.
The way the West was won. Obviously, number one and the number one overall seed. Same record as the Buffalo Bills, 14-3, but I have the Chiefs beating the Bills head-to-head in that game. So I have the Chiefs at 14-3. I don't need to say much else. I think the Chiefs should be the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I will pose this question to you. Let's just have this as a little Chiefs debate here, as opposed to talking about breaking down the Chiefs, because we all know they're so good. ESPN did their top 100 players, projecting the top, this past week. I talked about this on my show on Saturday, and my thought was I need to get Vasco. We need to have this conversation. So let's have it now.
Let's do it.
If the Chiefs had, and this is where it all came from. The number one overall player was Mahomes, and he was the number one quarterback. I'm very comfortable with that. The number 5 overall player and the number 1 wide receiver on the ESPN ranking was Tyreek Hill. The number 10 overall player and the number 1 tight end was Travis Kelce. I am very comfortable saying this season, Tyreek Hill with Patrick Mahomes, I would agree, is the number one receiver in the NFL. Like those two together. Now, if all of a sudden Tyreek Hill's on my Bears, I'd be like, he's still an amazing talent, top 5 talent, but he's not the number one wide receiver. I'd go with Adams or Hopkins, you know what I mean? Something like that.
Sure.
Now, and the same with Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce kind of transcends Mahomes in a way. I think he is the number one tight end in the league. But can I pose, this is the question that I posed. If in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, definitely 10 years from now, Mahomes is in his mid 30s, leaving his prime, end of his 12-year deal, Kelce's retired, Hill is retired, and if their legacy is only one Super Bowl, at what point in time, I know this is crazy, but at what point in time do we have to start saying, hey, Kansas City, I know you've been to 2 straight Super Bowls, you won one, but like, we are giving you all the love in the world, right? Like it feels like the way I talk about Kansas City now is the way I talked about the Packers in 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Yeah.
And they only won that one. So at one point in time, you have to maybe starts questioning that Kansas City, if you're not winning Super Bowls, like you're the number one quarterback, number one wide receiver, number one tight end, and you got blown out in a Super Bowl because your tackles were injured. Like, I'm sorry. At what point in time do I have to say we're maybe are we overrating them? Like you got to find if you have the number ones at all those 3 positions, and that's what the NFL's about right now, and you have a very good defense and pieces on your defense. There's a reason why we all think Kansas City should win the Super Bowl, and I just start like for Kansas City Chiefs fans, just start knowing that like this is starting to feel like how I felt as a Cubs fan after winning with the one World Series, that young core, and all of a sudden it's like, well, what happened? Like,
yeah. The thing with Kansas City, though, they at least got back, which is, hard enough to do, as opposed to the Packers never got back, and the Steelers haven't gotten back in a decade.
True. It's very similar to that.
The Steelers and the Packers, to me, are, like, very, very similar. I mean, Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They've had phenomenal talent, and they've completely underachieved in terms of postseason success. They have great regular seasons. Now, granted, the Packers in recent years have gone much further, so they've at least been in the conversation more than Pittsburgh has. But to me, they're very similar, and Kansas City could potentially enter that realm, to your point, if in the next few years they don't get back and they start plateauing. Because if they keep getting back and losing, yes, that's, you got to win. But also, it's like, well, they keep getting there, and they have the one that they can hang their hat on for the time being.
It's a lot like Aaron. It's just an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's
I know
something
it's so
to
stupid.
kick the can down the road. It is something to think later on.
It's just one of those thoughts. I'm like, Kelsey's already, 30, 31?
He's 30. I think, he's 31. So, yeah,
Hill is 25, but his weapon is being the fastest man. So, in 2 years from now, Tyreek Hill's going to feel
Or is he Deshaun Jackson? And he sticks around.
Well, maybe.
That could be too.
That would be great for Kansas City. It's just one of those things where I just want Chiefs fans, like, we're giving you a ton of love, and deservedly so. But at what point in time do we have to stop giving Kansas City so much love? Yeah. I think we're still so close to the fact they won a Super Bowl. They were literally an offsides away from being in 3 Super Bowls. Probably would have beaten the Rams. So, like, there's a reason why Kansas City gets the love. I'm just saying, when I saw that, my immediate thought went to, like, man, they have all this talent, and, they should win. Like, they should win. Yep. They should win. And they handle that pressure really well. But I love the Chiefs, 14-3. They are my favorites to win the Super Bowl, and they're the 1 seed in the AFC. I actually go to the Chargers as the second in the AFC West, 10-7. This is all my love for Justin Herbert. I'm very excited to watch Justin Herbert play. I think their offense is good. Offensive line's improved. If they keep him upright, I think he gets a whole season to start to build off of what they did. I think part of it is I don't see the Broncos and Teddy Bridgewater scoring with the Chargers, and I think the Chargers defense is sneaky better than we give them credit for. And remember, the Rams defense that has been so good the past 2 years, well, the defensive coordinator is now the head coach of that Chargers defense that has Bosa, that has some other pieces, linebackers I like, Derwin James. They have a lot of talent in L.A., and they have a great quarterback. So I like the Chargers to make a playoff run. I actually have them over the Browns as the final 2, but I give them the lip over the Browns to make in the playoffs. over the Browns, both at 10-7 as the final seed in. Broncos 8-9. I wanted to give them to 9-8 with Bridgewater, but I just think 8-9 feels more correct in the sense that I think they're going to lose both to the Chiefs. And I think the best they do is split with the Chargers and split with the Raiders, but I think they probably lose both to the Raiders too because I just don't see them scoring. Losing both to the Chargers. I just don't see them necessarily scoring with the Chargers. And Herbert is so dynamic compared to a Teddy Bridgewater. And I do think Drew Lock starts games at some point. So I think there's going to be quarterback controversy again in Denver at some point in time. They're going to be battling for playoffs. Teddy's going to have a really bad game or a really bad half. Drew Lock's going to get in. He's going to be really good in the second half against a team that didn't prepare for Drew Lock. He'll get like a start or two. They'll go back to Teddy because Drew throws a bunch of interceptions. I foresee something like that happening in Denver at some point in time this year. They have a lot of talent, so I think that gets them to 8 wins, but not enough. And I have the Raiders at 8-9 as well. I think the Raiders are in a similar boat. Love the Raiders offensively. I think they're going to score a bunch of points. I don't see them stopping a lot of people. And I think the Raiders' schedule is tougher than you think. I want the Raiders in the playoffs. I just don't see them getting 10 wins. I can't find them 10 wins. My ceiling for them is 8 wins. So I'm leaning towards the ceiling on that, kind of like I am with the Lions. I'm leaning towards their ceiling. I want them to get 10 wins to make it to the playoffs. I think the NFL, the Raiders, one of those brands where it's more fun, beautiful stadium, John Gruden. I just don't see it. I think Derek Carr is a good year. I don't blame Derek Carr for them not making the playoffs, but I have them at 8-9. So a very good division overall. I mean, if the worst team in your division is 8-9, I feel very good about them in that way. But I just don't see that the Broncos or the Raiders going into the over 500 club.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's we do have actually probably our biggest differences with this division. So at least we got some disparity here going into the final division of the AFC. So starting off with the AFC, for me, we do agree on the Chiefs, obviously, them being the number one team. I have them at 12-5 though, and for some of the reasons and the cautions that we talked about, I do think it's time to start talking about, this team is not as invincible as we think it is. I mean, this is a beatable team, and we've seen it. If you can pressure Mahomes, pressure's the name of the game in the NFL, period. It's what Tom Brady's Achilles heel has been. It's what beat Peyton Manning. It's what can beat Patrick Mahomes as well, because even though the guy can scramble, if you can pressure him and break up a play, now you're forcing everyone to make a play, and that just increases the likelihood of something good happening for the defense. So I have them at 12-5. Now still, they're winning the division, so it's, they're going to host a playoff game and everything like that, but I have them as the 4 seed. Like, I have them down there because I think at the top of the AFC, there's a lot of competition for wins, and I have the Bills at 13-4 and the Titans at 13-4 along with Baltimore. So those are the 3 that are going to take over, and Kansas City's going to be there at number 4. We'll kind of see, obviously, how it shakes out seedings-wise. I mean, maybe they will be set up to make quite a favorable run yet again. But right now, I just have them hosting that one playoff game and hoping for the best moving forward from there. The offensive line has improved, but I still worry about the run game in general and really parts of that defense too. I mean, obviously, you've got guys like Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu, who some of the best in the game, but as a whole unit, they've definitely got some holes and can be exploited. So that's going to be tough for them, and that's why I have them at 12-5. I have the Chargers at 10-7. Justin Herbert, I'm a big believer in. They also, we forget about who's returning here. I mean, Derwin James comes back, who one of the best safeties in the league. He comes back. Joey Bosa comes back from injury. I mean, all of a sudden, you've got some of the biggest playmakers on the defense that weren't there last year, or for at least the better part of last year, now making an impact for this NFL season. So I think this defense has the biggest turnaround in the entire league in terms of how they perform from year to year, which I think is going to obviously help a young Justin Herbert out a ton and really free him up to even be willing to make even more mistakes, which is a good thing given his gambler mentality and his improviser type of role that he's played. I think that will be to the benefit of this team. If Austin Eckler can stay healthy and they have that consistent run game, I think the sky's the limit for the Chargers. But unfortunately, being in that division and in the AFC, there's just too much competition right now, and I have them just missing out there as the 8th seed, with the Steelers getting that 7th seed over them. Then I have Denver at 5-12, and that's, the Teddy Bridgewater, maybe I should have bumped this a little bit because this was at the same that I had it with Drew Lock. Maybe I give them an extra win. But look, based off of what Teddy Bridgewater did with a relatively good defense in Carolina last year, a good run game, and weapons, he was able to get 5 wins out of that deal. So for me, in Denver, with a very similar situation, great skill guys, not the best line, and a solid defense, I just don't see them winning enough of the close games because Teddy just can't make those fourth quarter drives consistently enough, or at least hasn't shown to be able to do that to this point. So that kind of leaves me as the odd man out. When it comes to figuring out which one's going to win this game, well, I'm going to pick whoever Denver's playing most weeks if it's going to be a close game. If we're talking fourth quarter and you need one possession, I'm probably going to take their opponent over them more weeks than not. Finally, this is the biggest disparity here. I think the wheels are falling off of Las Vegas.
I knew I was waiting for this.
I have them at 4-13 as well. Now, granted, I will admit that is the lowest possible floor I can imagine for them. But in my predictor, where I predicted week in, week out for each game of the NFL season, this is just how it shook out. And maybe I can award them an extra win or 2 here and there, but really, 6 wins, that seems to be the range for Las Vegas to me. Look, I love Derek Carr too. I think the offense has a lot of talent. I think Bryan Edwards takes a step forward here in his second year. Darren Waller is obviously a force, but this run game seems to be trending in the wrong direction. The offensive line is decent, but has had its issues, especially staying healthy in recent years. But even all health considered, I'm not sure I trust this backfield of Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake with John Gruden at the helm. Like, I haven't seen it from Gruden yet here, Mark, and we've been waiting for it. We've been waiting to see that them turn the corner, and they seem to have reached a plateau. And now I think they're going to start to regress because that defense really worries me. It may be one of the bottom 5, bottom 10 defenses in the league. And when you're competing in a conference with so many offensive minded coaches and offensive talented teams, that's going to be difficult for a team like Vegas to overcome week in and week out. That's why I have them at 4-13. That's probably one of my boldest predictions in terms of the seedings. Because I understand that, 4 wins is extremely low for a team with a good quarterback. But that's just where I have the Raiders at right now, and I'm not feeling good about their chances this season.
I mean, you're not crazy. Listen, I'm looking at the Raiders' schedule here now because it's obviously our biggest disagreement. I just think there is a stretch where the Raiders can get hot. They're home against Baltimore. I think we both think, Monday Night Football to start the season. I think we both think that's a loss.
Yeah.
They're at Pittsburgh. We both like Pittsburgh more. We think that's both of a loss.
That's at home for Pittsburgh too. So
you start the season 0-2. And then you're against Miami. I mean, Miami's defense is very good, but that's Miami home traveling all the way out west. I don't know if Miami's offense could score. I could see them winning
Miami
that game
there, though. But yeah,
So there's, but there's then that stretch. So it's like
the Broncos, Eagles, Giants is really
Broncos, Eagles, Giants. Now and then you have Chiefs, but then Bengals. So it's like you could win 4 of 5 there.
Yeah.
Who knows what Dallas will look like in week 12? Who knows? And then you have there's some opportunity, but you're absolutely right. I have them on the high end. I think the absolute ceiling is 8 wins. Absolute. And I'm taking it there just because I think it's a fondness for the Raiders. And I do like Derek Carr. And I think Derek Carr's the type of guy that could be playing the starting quarterback for like the Houston Texans next year. He could be the starting quarterback for like the Washington football
Yep.
team next year. I think
Washington could be a good fit.
the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, I mean, I think he has a very good season. I don't think it's Derek Carr's fault
No.
that they're not gonna make the playoffs.
They just haven't been able to build it around him. I think we could split the difference between us because you have the high ceiling, I have the low floor.
Probably
we can probably have them to
yeah.
6 to 7 wins might be the more accurate end of the season prediction. But
overall, I have your 1 seed is your Chiefs, the 2 seed
no.
is the Bills.
My 1 seed is Baltimore.
No.
I'm
me,
sorry.
I was reading mine.
Okay.
My 1 seed is the Chiefs. The 2 seed is the Bills. The 3 seed is the Ravens. 4 is the Titans. Those are your division winners. And then I have the Colts at the 5, Steelers at the 6, Chargers 7, Browns the first team out.
Gotcha. So I have Baltimore first, followed by Buffalo as the 2 seed, Tennessee as the 3 seed, and then Kansas City rounding out the division winners as the 4 seed. Indy comes in as the 5, Cleveland 6, Pittsburgh 7, with the Chargers just missing out at 8.
So the only difference we have is Chargers and Cleveland, basically. And I think that's fair. I mean, neither of us are completely wrong. I have the Browns being the first one out. You have the Chargers being the first one out. It's it's just flip flop.
It can really go either way for sure.
Yeah. So. Is there one team? I mean, the only team that I'm looking at this going, man, I feel like I'm going to regret not putting them in the playoffs is the Browns, and then I would say the Patriots and the Dolphins. It wouldn't shock me if the Browns, of the teams I don't have in, the Browns, Patriots, Dolphins, all 3 of those teams could end up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't be shocked. I think there's enough of a roster there. I think for me, like I said, the biggest determining factor was I don't see any of those 3 teams, Browns, Patriots, Dolphins, having enough of the 3-play scoring drives. The Browns can have some. But I just don't think – I think the Browns' defense is so thin after Myles Garrett. It's improved, but it's still like an injury or 2 away. And I know we always say injuries aside, but we all know injuries will play a massive part of the NFL season. They always do.
Right.
That is the game
it's just predicting where it's going to happen and when.
It's predicting where and when, and that's the hardest thing. So pretty good. I mean, pretty close. Certainly way less differences than for our NFC.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree for the most part. I would probably say, the Chargers are a team that I felt bad keeping out of the playoffs. I thought they could easily be there. And then Miami too. So we have similar thoughts on that process. Well, obviously, Mark, we are approaching week 1 rapidly.
I know.
And so we have a game on Thursday night. We can do our quick Thursday night preview, who you think wins, who you loses, and then we'll give a couple quick thoughts on some of the most obvious bets and spreads to look for this upcoming week. So to start, it is the Dallas Cowboys at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and some big news coming out recently is that Zach Martin, the all-pro guard for the Dallas Cowboys, will not be available for this game. Dallas, I thought, had a fighting chance on the road at Tampa for this one. With Zach Martin out, to me, that becomes much less likely because running the football is the name of the game in the NFL. But on top of that, if you want to beat the Buccaneers, you're going to have to be able to run the football at least somewhat and help control that line of scrimmage because once you get those guys going, they're not stopping. Right now, Tampa Bay is a very heavy favorite, 7.5-point favorites in this one. What are your thoughts on how this shakes out, Mark?
Well, I think Tampa Bay wins it. I think again, it's going to be one of those games that's maybe shockingly close early, like in middle of the second quarter. Why is it only like 14-13 Tampa Bay? And it's a little sloppy. I think both teams are going to look sloppy, but I think once the second half comes, you're going to watch that Tampa Bay defense ratchet it on up. And I think you're going to see the Cowboys defense fall apart a little bit like they do. I mean, this is a reworked, improved Cowboys defense. We both have the Cowboys as a playoff team. You're higher on them than I am, but I think it's one of those games that you're going to see Tampa Bay in the third quarter, 2 or 3 touchdowns, kind of blow the game open. Maybe Dallas gets a touchdown or 2 late to make it look less of the box score look a little nicer. I think Dak is going to be very rusty early, But the Cowboys have a ton of weapons, so they're going to get a couple cheap scores. The Cowboys, talk about a team that can get 3-play drives, scoring drives. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Zeke alone can bust a run. So, I think Zach Martin being out and Ndamukong Suh coming off the COVID list, like, it's a bad time for the Cowboys offensive line. I think the bet in this game is the over 51.5.
Yes, I saw that.
The over is
Absolutely.
only 51.5. I think this game could easily be 35 to 28, 35-27. You can get the over pretty cleanly there. I think Tampa's going to score a bunch of points. I think they're going to be up big heading into the fourth. I think Dallas gets a couple drives, makes it closer, scores 14 points in the fourth to maybe cover the spread, cover the over and hit the over. But yeah, I think it's not really close. The third quarter, Tampa separates, adjustments in the halftime. But I think it could be very sloppy early on. Ring ceremony. The last game we saw played of NFL football was in Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah.
Back in Raymond James Stadium.
Lot high emotion for this game, and they're pumped and ready to go. Yeah. Do you have a score prediction? I know you threw out, 35 you said or something?
I would go something like 35, 20, 27, something like that. So I think even that you could cover the spread if you're Tampa and you take the -7.5. But I think the over is the bigger number. It could get closer even late, like 33-30, but Tampa really had it in control most of the game.
The whole time, yeah.
Yeah, but I love the over being hit. The 7.5 is a lot, especially just because it's so. When you see points like that, you almost be smart to take the 7.5 with Dallas because first game of the season, that's a lot of points to swallow, and both teams are going to be rusty. It's a lot. Both teams are going to be rusty, but I like the over hitting, and I like Tampa showing up, and also. I'm very high in Tampa this year, and so I have them showing up and showing out in week one.
Yeah, I think the offenses are pretty comparable in terms of potential and things like that. So I would put them somewhat even in that regard. Maybe give a slight edge to Tampa because Zach Martin's out for the Cowboys, but they also have Zeke. Tampa doesn't. They've got a committee approach there. But the defense is really what pushes it over the edge for me. I mean, Tampa's defense could easily come away with a couple key turnovers that really change the course of this game. 34-24 is my prediction for it. So I think Tampa is able to cover it, although I wouldn't feel super confident in like betting the spread on that one. Like you said, I think I'd feel a little more comfortable with the points on that game. But yes, we both agree Tampa comes away with the win against the Cowboys. Just the one Thursday night game to start the NFL season here. And then obviously all of these Sunday games. You got your Bears on Sunday night against the Rams. Some good ones to look forward to coming up here momentarily. Anything stand out to you, Mark, in terms of lines or bets of the week that you think are some of the easiest ones? Because for me, I'll throw one out there to start.
Go for it.
Chargers -1 at Washington. I just feel I feel confident in Washington as well in terms of this year. I think they're a really good team. But I think when they stack up with the Chargers here, I just think the Chargers are a superior team. And even though it's on the road, I think the Chargers are winners. And whenever I get a 1 as the spread there, if I feel confident enough that one team's going to win, then I'm going to take that bet because it's just 1 point there. And I think the Chargers win by a field goal, if not by like 4, pretty easily just because of the offense taking that next step. And as I mentioned previously, that defense I think is going to be so much better this year than what they were last year. And therefore, that's going to give Ryan Fitzpatrick and company some fits early on. So Chargers -1 at Washington is one of my early ones here.
Plays I am making on the Barstool Sports app. Shout out Barstool Sports app. It's my favorite app.
We got to get them as a sponsor on the show or something.
I'm just saying I love using it. I think it's the most fun one. The bet with stuff is all great. The line I'm seeing here there's two that I really love. Tennessee -3. They're at home against Arizona. I have a feeling this is going to be a game that Tennessee wins by a touchdown or more. I feel very good about Tennessee in this game at home against Arizona. So getting 3 points there is something and the over that could be a high scoring game too. The over under is only 52. So again, I mean, you only got to get to 30-24 for that to hit. And I certainly see that in a Titans win over the Cardinals. So if you can get the -3 and the over, put those together, I love that in that game. And then, Dan, the other one I really like is your Carolina Panthers. -5.5 over the Jets. Again,
there
that's
we go.
A lot of points in week one, but I just think this is another one of those games that could be tight. 14-14 at half. But then all of a sudden, I just think you're going to see the talent of a Carolina in Carolina against a rookie head coach, against Zach Wilson. So much of an emotional prove-it game for Sam Darnold and that coaching staff. Matt Rule, they're going to be hyping him up. I see the Panthers winning that game at least by a touchdown. So the fact that I can get -5.5, I really like it. Now, the over-under is 45 in this. I don't know about that because
I don't want to touch that.
I think this could be more like 24-14.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The Jets don't score a ton against that improved Panthers defense. So that's a line I like. Really quickly, was there anything else that I saw that was worth nibbling on?
I saw San Fran -7.5 at Detroit, and I felt pretty good about that one too. And that's another big line, but it's San Fran at Detroit.
Yeah.
Like I could see San Fran winning by 20 points in this one, So San Francisco, for me, seems to be a pretty good lock to not only win at Detroit, but win by more than a touchdown.
Yeah, the Bears game is I'm gonna lose a lot of money on the Bears game. I'm looking at
that's just a given every year right there.
I'm looking at this right now, Sunday Night Football, because they're getting 7.5. I'm like, yep, taking that. They're getting the over under is 44. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna score points. But really, it's gonna be it's probably gonna be the Rams scoring like 40.
I would take the over in points, but I don't want part of that spread, really. I don't know.
Listen, no, those are my two. I'll be in dead seriousness. Those are two I'm actually betting. I actually like those a lot. Carolina -5.5, and I do really like. Picks. I do really like Tennessee -3. I just think they win by more than 3. I think, and the over in that one 52. But again, early in the season, things can get wonky, too. Remember that. I always go back to it. Lamar Jackson's MVP season, 6 touchdowns against Miami. Now, Miami was trying to be bad that year, but still, like, week one, weird things are going to happen. So there's going to be stuff that, like the Jags beating the Colts last year. There's going to be things that we sit here a week from now going, what the bleep was that? And, Dan, that's what I'm most excited about. That's football season being back. You and I here a week from now, Monday, 3 o'clock, we start recording again going, can you believe? Did you see?
Yeah.
What did you make of? Oh, my gosh. This is football season. It's back. And we will, I promise you, we will tomorrow, I will get up our NFC playoff predictions on the Facebook page. We'll get our AFC playoff predictions up on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we will give you official what we're betting for the Thursday night game. And then on Saturday, we'll give you a card on the social media, on the Facebook and Twitter for the weekend as well with these official things. So hold us to it. Bet with us this season. If we lose your money, that sucks.
That's on you guys.
We're going to lose money too. If we win money, don't bite the fee. Don't forget who feeds you at night. And we're going to try to really be active with our official picks and stuff like that on the Facebook page especially. So that's a reason to tune into the Facebook page for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Then now is the time, obviously, to join us and click those notifications and make sure you're getting notified every time we drop it. Yeah, so many great games this upcoming week.
I'm looking at week one. I know. We got good games.
It's almost as if the NFL knows how to schedule its weeks.
It's gonna be so good.
Very much looking forward to this. Obviously, seeing a lot of these rookie quarterbacks in action too. So really excited to see that, and we'll be looking forward to a great weekend of football. Of course, you can always catch us at Mark Hespin, at Dan Vasco, on Twitter at FB Lounge Pod. Check us out on Facebook as well. And you can catch us on YouTube and any streaming site of your choice for the podcast if you like and hear what you see. if you like what you hear and see. See, I'm already losing it.
Yeah.
Then be sure to just give us a like on social media, give us a follow, and we'll be sure to bring you this content every week throughout the NFL season. Right after week 1, we'll have that week 1 recap episode, and then looking ahead to week 2, and we are off and running. So very much looking forward to that. And as always, we'd love to hear your feedback as well. So hit us up on social media to do that. But until then, enjoy a great weekend of football. Have a great Labor Day, a safe, happy Labor Day weekend to you all as well. And we'll see you back here next week.